Welcome to Aqua Talks, where marketing meets bold, game-changing ideas. Join your hosts, Larry Aldrich and Mady Dudley, as they explore the art and science of cutting through the noise, capturing attention, and fostering meaningful connections with your audience. Whether you're a destination marketer, government contractor, or simply passionate about the transformative power of marketing, Aqua Talks offers engaging discussions, fresh insights, and actionable strategies designed to inspire and inform.
Welcome to Aqua Talks, where we dive deep into the world of marketing, whether you're a seasoned marketing pro or you're just getting started out in the hospitality, travel, federal, private marketing world. We're here to help guide you along, whether it's to grow your brand or grow your audience. We want to assist you. This podcast is powered by Brensis Tech, a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business. My name's Mady. I am one of the co-hosts of Aqua Talks. I have 7 years of experience within the public relations industry. I've worked across agencies. Everyone from Google to startups have been my clients, and travel and tourism is really my passion. So that's why I'm excited to be here today, joined by Larry Aldrich, my co-host.
Thank you, Mady. My name is Larry Aldrich, President and CEO of Aqua Marketing Communications. I'm an Air Force veteran. I have a background in marketing with an MBA. I have been in multiple industries, from the nuclear industry all the way to tourism and destination. I also have been in federal procurement, where we've done marketing for multiple agencies in the civilian and DoD field. Today, we're exploring how to make travel marketing more inclusive with expert Rachel Covello. Rachel, thank you for being with us today. We'd love to hear more about you.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate you having me here. My name is Rachel Covello. I own OutCoast.com. It's an LGBTQ travel blog exploring coast to coast with pride across the U.S. My roots started here in Florida from the travel blog, but prior to Florida, I lived in Pennsylvania, where I launched an LGBTQ nonprofit organization. We did a lot of work for a small town to bring in inclusive travelers. And so it's great to be in Florida doing the work here and recently expanding our work beyond Florida to cover the entire country. I host events in Florida as well. I've hosted the Florida OutCoast Convention, which was a tourism industry related event to educate travel destinations on LGBTQ inclusive strategies. I've also hosted events for community members, from lesbian pop-up parties to outreach events in the arts and culture areas. And we will continue growing this over the next year. And this year, I'm really passionate about wellness and incorporating wellness more into what we're doing. Wellness is a big topic right now. It's a growing trend in the industry. I have a feeling we'll be talking about that shortly. But wellness is really important to the LGBTQ and diverse traveler, whether it's accessible travel, whether it's plus size travel, making sure that people have places of safety and belonging when they travel places. So I'm excited to talk to you guys more about lots of different topics.
We have a lot to cover today. But first, I want to start with, what does inclusive travel mean to you?
So I think, kind of going back to what I just said, safety and belonging, I think inclusive travel is all about traveling and marketing travel rooted in safety and belonging. If I feel safe and I feel like I can find connections and belonging in those destinations, then I want to travel there. And I think you're going to see that more and more in this interesting political landscape we're in, of people that are diverse looking for those places where they are going to feel safe and they are going to feel like they belong. And it's bigger than just inclusion in my mind.
As a publisher of OutCoast, what's your inspiration and your vision of the future?
So I started OutCoast back in 2017. We were more Tampa Bay focused at the time. And the intention at that point was to share the LGBTQ stories of our community. And that actually was rooted in my work I was doing in Pennsylvania. I was partnering with a local community leader who wanted to launch an LGBTQ business type platform. We didn't see eye to eye, but I took a lot of those ideas and created my own content platform when I came here. Ironically, the year that I moved to Florida in St. Pete, I met the IGLTA, the International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association organization. They were hosting their conference at the Vinoy right here in St. Pete. And I was brand new, but I reached out and I said, hey, I want to be media. I had no following at the time, but they took a chance and they invited me in. And then a week before the conference, their photographer backed out last minute. And they said, do you know a photographer in the area? And I was like, I do photography. Again, had never done a conference. I had done photography more locally and more for fun. But I loved working with them. We created some great work together, and I wound up being their conference photographer for a few years in a row. And I say that because very quickly after we launched OutCoast as a community platform, we pivoted to travel because of those relationships that I was building in the community. And since then, we grew to the statewide platform for Florida, and then now we're a national platform. I want to always continue growing and evolving as trends evolve and as things happen in tourism. So my future focus really with OutCoast is diversifying beyond LGBTQ. As someone who publicly identifies as a lesbian, although I do identify as bisexual, I have a wife. I think it's also important to look at intersectionality. I'm not just LGBTQ. I also struggle with ADHD, anxiety. I have lived my life for most of my life as a almost 300-pound woman. I've lost a lot of weight this year, and there's a huge change in how I travel as well as how I'm treated when I travel. So I think these are all things that we can start incorporating more into our content. And wellness is, like I said, a huge topic right now, wanting to make sure people feel safe and healthy. And there's a big trend in sober travel. So making sure we're including some of that content in our platform.
So can you tell us a little bit how you work as a consultant with marketing agencies or DMOs to help promote inclusivity? Like, what are the first steps you take to get people to that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So, over the years, I've kind of also pivoted how we approach working with partners. It used to be that a destination would say, hey, we want you to come in and create content. And I would like, yes, let's do it. I think as times change, and again, I don't want to get political in conversation, but I think we need to also be aware of what's happening on the political landscape. I think it's really important to make sure that when you are promoting a destination, that you're looking at what that destination offers, how the destination might come across to the traveler, and get that traveler's real experience, a lived experience in that destination first. So we've been kind of pulling back from jumping to content creation. And instead, and I had a meeting earlier today, the same conversation was, before we start creating content, let's look at what you're currently doing. Let me come there and experience the destination as an LGBTQ person, maybe even bring my wife so we can experience it together, or bring, if there's a demographic, like it might be a Black gay couple, like let's bring them in and explore it together and get their lived experience so that we can come back to you as a DMO or the agency working with a DMO and say, this is what really happened when we were here. Here's the pros, kind of like a SWOT analysis. Here's the pros, here's things that need to be worked on. Here's where some education and training needs to happen before we start really driving this forward. You're also finding right now a lot of LGBTQ-owned businesses not wanting to be so open and out about being LGBTQ-owned from a safety perspective. So making sure that we're getting permission and talking to these business owners before we out them in a way. So I think there's a lot of things we do now on the front end before we even dive into creating the content. From the content perspective, when we get to that point, I am a 44-year-old Caucasian, femme, lesbian, bisexual, queer woman. And I think I have to understand that because my lived experience isn't going to be the same as a Black gay man or Latino couple, correct? So I also like to make sure that in our content, it might be a destination that they want to show diversity. I might not be the person that should be in that content. I might highlight that destination, but I might also want to invite others in to create content with me, or I might suggest a different influencer that would be a better fit for pulling in that demographic. So I do this with Miami sometimes. It's a Latina culture, beautiful place to visit. I've done content in that destination, but I've also brought in a couple of Latina friends who are bilingual or trilingual so that we can have a real fun experience in a different light.
Right. It's about the authenticity.
Exactly.
Nice.
What do you think is the most important change the travel industry can make to improve the experience of a traveler with hidden disabilities?
So as someone that definitely has hidden disabilities, even just sitting here, I have moments where I'm like, okay, all is well, kind of doing that, calming the brain. In the LGBTQ world, a lot of times the marketing you wind up seeing is pride events and bars and clubs and energy and crowds. And as someone who is neurodivergent or has a hidden disability, that's a lot. That's a lot to do all the time. And although I do them from a marketing perspective a lot, it's not personally necessarily where I want to be when I'm enjoying my own social time, because when I'm not working, I want calm. So for me, understanding that hidden disabilities is a spectrum of people. It could be someone who has a neurodivergency, whether it's anxiety, ADHD, autism, whatever that might be, depression. It could also be someone who has heart issues that they just want to make sure there's a medical place nearby, or there's a lot of different components to it. So I think it's really important to understand what that means before you start marketing to it. So I think number one is educating yourself. Number two, I would say, is looking at programs that are already out there doing really cool things, like hidden disability program is a big one. The sunflower program, if you've ever heard of it, where people wear sunflowers showing that they're a safe space for someone with hidden disabilities. Because if I'm in the middle of an anxiety attack or maybe low blood sugar because I have diabetes, knowing that there's someone that I can visibly see that's safe for me is great to have. I also think when you're marketing, stay away from the stereotypes. Not all of us want to go to a big gay bar or crowded space. And some of us deal with alcohol. I never had any personal issues with alcohol, but I've chosen to be sober. My wife has too. And there's a huge moving trend with that. So maybe bars and places to drink wine is not the first place to market to us all the time. It might be other things that might be of interest to our community. We're diverse people within our diverse spectrum. So you have to think about it that way too.
Right. It's not just a one size fits all solution.
Yeah.
Some of the airports that we work with have initiated the Hidden Sunflower Disability Program, and it's done wonders for them. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
It's a great program. Absolutely.
So, of course, we wouldn't be sitting here today if we didn't think that diversity in travel marketing was extremely important. But I would just love to hear in your own words why you think that DMOs and agencies should prioritize diversity in marketing.
Because people are diverse. I mean, that's really the answer. We're not all white, cisgender, straight people. I remember growing up seeing ads on TV, and it was the perfect, beautiful, rich white family, right? And I didn't see myself in that. My mother was over 300 pounds growing up. She's also lost quite a bit of weight over the years. My father as well. We were a larger family, and we were not the typical picture of what you'd see on these ads. And so although I am white and don't have the experience of a Black person, I do have the experience of a plus size person. And so I think it's really important we all love to travel. We love to dine out. We love to experience everything at every size, at every race, every culture, et cetera. We are diverse people. So if you're not starting conversations in your marketing on, what market are we looking at? We want to make sure we're including all of the markets that make sense for this destination. I think it's really important. And it truly is amazing. I've seen DMOs change the experience and the demographic of their community because of the work they're doing in the diversity space. And then all of a sudden you're seeing a different demographic traveling to that area. And it's beautiful. And I think of destinations, whether it's to land up and visit the West Volusia area, or honestly, even when we created our LGBTQ nonprofit in Pennsylvania, this was an old steel town, and now it's a destination for pride, for inclusivity, for diversity, and it's all because of the way that destination was marketed with some of the work we were doing with the local DMOs.
What should LGBTQ plus travelers, as well as travelers with hidden disabilities, consider before booking an accommodation or going to a specific destination?
The good news now is there's so many resources out there. There's a ton of inclusive focused travel bloggers, especially for LGBTQ accessibility. That one especially is becoming a little bit more of a trend. I think looking for content that's out there and some guidance that's out there. I also think, it's important sometimes too to ask difficult questions. If you're concerned about a place being inclusive toward a certain demographic or yourself, it honestly is awful that sometimes we have to ask those questions. I was actually just hiring a cleaning person. And the first question that I asked her was, are you okay working in a space with a lesbian couple? Is anything going to be uncomfortable for you? Because those are questions we ask that I think straight couples take for granted. So I think it's important to ask some of those difficult questions. Hopefully we get to the point where we don't have to ask those questions. I think it's also really important on the other side for marketing agencies and DMOs to think about things beyond tourism. So we are so trained in the marketing industry and tourism to highlight the places that travelers will go and spend money, whether it's a hotel, a bar, restaurant, et cetera, attraction. But I will know that a destination is more inclusive if there's also health and wellness facilities for our demographic, if there's doctors in that area for our demographic, if there are resources for that demographic. So it's also smart to incorporate into your inclusive marketing resources available in the community. although a traveler might not use it, it says to a diverse traveler that resources are available, not only because they might need them, but more because if the resources are available, it means there's a demographic there. So they will, again, go back to that safety and belonging. They'll have belonging while they're in that destination. So I think it's also important from the traveler perspective, look to see if there's resources in that area that serve and cater to that demographic, because it says a lot about who you're going to find when you're visiting.
With all of that said, what do you think could be an important change the travel industry can make to make travelers with hidden disabilities feel more comfortable, more accessible?
I think number one is always education, and don't always put it on the person with hidden disabilities to educate you, but go out and take the initiative to learn more about what hidden disabilities are. Hire someone, an expert, to come in and talk to those conversations, and making sure that if you're promoting a destination as inclusive, whether it's for LGBTQ, hidden disability, Black, plus size, whatever that might be, making sure that the staff in these places are all on the same page. So we do a lot of training. Sometimes a DML will do training for their members, and it's usually the salespeople or the marketing people that they're training. But at what point are we also going in and training the front desk, the staff, the housekeeping, all of these different people that are going to be in these spaces with people that have, inclusive needs in mind, to make sure that from the moment they walk in the door, they are going to feel included and welcome and safe.
Okay.
Did that answer the question?
Yeah. Oh, no, that was actually a great answer. We were actually going to talk a little bit about trends now, and trends in marketing. There's a lot of trends coming up, a lot of new technology. So speaking of trends in marketing, what do you think about AI in marketing and where it's going?
AI is that constant growing beast that I think we all can't keep up with right now. AI is amazing. It's almost scary amazing. There's so many capabilities that AI does and has. I think the one thing we need to be careful with AI is bias in AI and those tools and platforms, because if I go to write something, and it's getting better, but if I go to write something or prompt something that I want content for or an image of, most likely AI is going to give you the stereotypical image that we've always thought of in marketing places. So you're going to get that Caucasian, straight, perfect, happy family where we might want to show a single dad with a kid or different cultures and races. And we need to make sure that when we create prompts for AI that we're giving it details on adding diversity and making sure that different people are shown and in both the written and the visual concepts.
You see AI very helpful in a lot of redundant tasks or tasks that can be, alleviated with some simple tasks, but adding the human factor, I think, is still really important when it comes to marketing and using AI. What are your thoughts on making sure that after you use your AI tool, making sure you add the human factor back into it?
Yeah, and I think the tools are getting better at the human factor. I mean, you could go back into ChatGPT and say, hey, make this sound more like me or make this sound more human in conversation. And it does a really good job. It's really scary how good it can be sometimes. But if you're using it for content, whether it's copy or whether it's, writing articles or whatever it might be, it's really important to go in and edit. AI doesn't know everything. There's a lot of things that get updated. Destinations alone, restaurants open and close all the time. So making sure that it's giving you accurate information is really important. I think that's going to be a big thing moving forward, is checking for accuracy. And I can always tell when something is written with AI or ChatGPT because it uses the word vibrant. If I see that word vibrant, I know you're using ChatGPT. So
I'm going to stop using vibrant.
I'm just letting you know, it's just one of those words that if you mention drag show or if you mention anything like a pride parade, the vibrant pride parade, and I know we use that word, but it's so overused. So there are certain words like that in ChatGPT and other AI tools that you see trend more often. So it might be good to just, reach out to someone you're trying to target and say, hey, is this a word you would use to describe a drag show? I have never used the word vibrant for a drag show, ever. So might be a different words.
If you were doing a campaign for a restaurant or a chain of restaurant, What would you use AI maybe to help get it started and then fill in the rest with your talent and your skill? Or how far would you use AI when it comes to creating a campaign?
So as someone with ADHD, as we've discussed, I love using AI, whether it's ChatGPT, that's probably the one I use the most right now. I love using it to formulate an organized thought. So, and I like to now that ChatGPT allows you to talk to it, because then it feels more conversational. And sometimes I get tired of typing or my nails get too long and I'm tired of typing. But sometimes I'll do the voice where I'll talk to it, say, hey, I'm thinking about this. I did this actually to update my bio recently. I said, hey, I really need to list all these things, but I need to compress it and make it more like tighter so it doesn't sound too long. And can you give me a few ideas? The other thing it's great for too is for presentations. If I want to like outline a presentation and put some ideas together, I might give it all sorts of information about what I want to focus on. And then it creates that organized, okay, slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. And then I get to go back and create the slides based on that. The other one I really like is beautiful.ai. It's a presentation creator. That's another one. But for someone like me who struggles a little bit with task-oriented stuff, I can create all sorts of crazy things. But the routine things are what my brain struggles with more. Having that tool to help with that is like, it's a game changer. I get so much more done now with AI, and I'm not using it to replace people. I'm using it to make our kind of the core of what we do even stronger. And then the people that I work with now have better tools, and I'm more organized when they're working with me. So I think there's a lot of cool capabilities that it offers.
Yeah, I agree, especially when it comes to creativity, or giving me more time for creativity so they can automate all of the redundant tasks, and then I can let my imagination run wild.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of really cool things you can do with automation. I saw a speaker at a conference recently, and I'm blanking on his name, but he had everything automated to email responses and, using a lot of different tools. I'm not there yet. The thought of even doing that is overwhelming my brain, but there's really a lot of really cool things. I just don't think it should replace the human touch. Where I see it cause the most issue is a lot with the bots and the AI bots that are being used to do sales pitches. My background is sales. So whether it's creating marketing campaigns or selling or advertising or services, I was always taught to dig for pain and understand what really drives and motivates people. Bots don't do that. They just pitch their service. And back in the day, we called that feature puking. We're just like giving information, but we really need to like dig deeper to better understand like what is at the root of why people would make a decision.
Yeah, I had a sales course and I wrote a paper on it was kind of like the pendulum. And it's when you're getting your it's funny because the terms that they use for the person you're selling to, your subject, your one of the tasks was called, it was like the pendulum. So you're selling your concept to the person you're selling it to, and as you have the conversation going along, you start to pull back. And as you're pulling back in a way where you're kind of talking to them as the product or service that you're selling might not be good for them or might not work for them. So as you're pulling back, they're pulling towards you. And it only works if you get that conversation going the first few minutes. So when you start pulling your service or product back, they start to follow you to start to tell you how your product and service would work for them. So now you get them selling you or selling themselves on why they should use your product or service. So then you push it back to them a little bit. So the pendulum's going back the other way. And now that's a way of dragging them in deeper. And then pretty much at the final part of your close, is it, well, you kind of mentioned how this product or service would work for you. Can you explain that a little bit more to me? I'm curious to hear that now. So now they're selling themselves by telling you how your product and service would work for them.
And going back to AI doesn't, we're not at that level yet where AI has that psychology behind it. So, sales techniques aren't things, we learn them in school. I worked for Marriott for a couple of years in my sales career and learned all these skills and tools. But the reality was like, it was real experience out in the field that really taught me that. And it's experience working with the LGBT community to fully understand, like, what is the pain points in our community? Again, if you say to me, hey, you're going to love coming to New York City, we're the most inclusive city in the country, my anxiety is on edge. My ADHD is like, what am I going to look at first? My need to party is not there. So I know you're a city guy. I'm a small town country girl. So I'd rather know where the gays are two-stepping than know like where to like party at a Pride Fest. So I think AI is just not there yet to fully understanding different demographics and what drives them and being able to have those conversations. So when they're used as sales bots, I cringe. You could see it coming a mile away, and they tell me that I'm vibrant and I should work with them. I'm done. Totally done.
Okay. Well, before we let you go, or before you decide to get up and run away from us.
We're close, Larry.
Yeah, I know. Through, let's say, January, February, March, what kind of conferences or trade shows can we find you?
So I've been doing quite a bit of podcasts. This is actually my year of kind of grounding myself. This past few years, I've been going and creating and speaking, and I've done things with IGLTA and, DI and all sorts of different groups. But this year's kind of my, like, ground yourself again and cut back a little bit from some of the big things. So I'm being a little bit more selective in what I take on. But I'm always offering advice, obviously, on our, on my channels. You can find me everywhere. I am the only Rachel Covello in the world. So Google my name. I'm all over the place.
Very lucky.
I have like a name, but I do. So I do a mix of stuff. So I do speaking, consulting, a lot of webinars. I'm working a lot with DMOs and agencies like yours to do more in-depth trainings and kind of more private trainings. I also dabble in comedy, so you can see me on the stage too. Oh, okay. But that's a whole different conversation for another day.
That's a different podcast.
It is a totally different podcast.
So, Rachel, can you tell us about a sort of campaign that you've worked on recently that you really enjoy or you're very proud of?
Yeah, so there's actually two I have in mind. One was a campaign that we did with you guys. We worked with Visit Lauderdale together. And it was the first time that I had done a campaign that not only touched on LGBTQ topics, but also hidden disability topics, and which was exciting for me because it was my first branching out beyond my LGBTQ plus identity. And I got a little bit more vulnerable with the camera and was sharing with our, my followers and our viewers that I do struggle with anxiety and ADHD. But the anxiety one as a traveler for me is harder to deal with sometimes because you're flying and then people in new places. And although it's much more in check now than it was years ago, it's definitely still something that comes up every now and then. So we actually got to explore the Hidden Disabilities program at the Broward Convention Center. I said I'm not doing big parties and big clubs. So we did parks and we did places that were more calming for the mind and soul and all of that. And so it was really exciting to do that. It was a little different than the norm. And it was me as a solo traveler, which was kind of fun. The other campaign that I'm really proud of, we just started working with the state of Illinois. It's really the first time we've worked at a state level. And Illinois, if you think LGBTQ, you think Chicago. Well, Illinois offers a lot beyond Chicago. So what we did was a whole campaign beyond Chicago. So we're still working on a lot of the videos and content. It'll be coming out over the next few months. But we did a statewide road trip and visited 5 different destinations beyond Chicago that welcome LGBTQ and diverse travelers. And I had so much fun. I am a small town girl. I love suburban small towns. And my favorite thing to do in any destination, whether it's a southern town in kind of that deep south or a blue state like Illinois, is to find the rainbow gems in these destinations. So what I also like to do, and it's kind of that consulting side, is they'll give me an itinerary of places to go and things to explore, but I'm going to find things that maybe they didn't know about. And so I usually come back at the end of those trips with tips for that destination on maybe other gems they didn't know about or businesses that cater to our community. And it just helps them better promote what they're doing and their destination. But I really loved working with every DMO within that state. And then, of course, also the statewide level. They're doing great work up there.
I love to hear that.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, thank you for being with us. We really enjoyed hearing about you, about your story. Thank you for tuning in to our very first Aqua Talks podcast with Rachel Covello. Go to aquatalks.com for more information. We will see you next episode.
You've been listening to Aqua Talks, where marketing innovation takes center stage with bold ideas and actionable insights. Ready to take your strategies to the next level? Visit aquatalks.com to book your free consultation and explore resources that empower you to thrive in today's fast-paced marketing world. Until next time, stay bold, stay inspired, stay imaginative.